Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you. Sorry I've been gone for a little while. Wasn't feeling too good, but ready to do a story actually I'm going to do for yesterday. By the Shores of Silver Lake by Laura Ingalls Wilder. If you remember, last time we read, Pa came in and the surveyors were coming, so they had to get ready to move out of the surveyor's house. So this is chapter 27, Living in Town. All around the unfinished little town, the endless prairie lay greening, meaning turning green, in the sunshine, for the new grass was starting everywhere. Silver Lake was blue, and the large white clouds in the sky were mirrored in the clear water. Slowly, Laura and Carrie walked on either side of Mary toward the town. Behind them came the loaded wagon, Pa and Ma and Grace riding in it, and the cow Ellen tied behind. They were all moving into Pa's building in town. The surveyors had come back. Mr. and Mrs. Bose were gone to their claim. There was nowhere to live except in Pa's unfinished building. And in all the hustle, bustle, and busyness of the town, there was no one that Laura knew. She did not feel all alone. She did not feel all alone and happy on the prairie now. She felt lonely and scared. The town's being there made a big difference. Men were busily working on the new buildings up and down Main Street. Shavings and sawdust and ends of boards were scattered on the muddy and trampled young grass in the street, and wheels had cut deep ruts through it. Though the frames of the building did not have siding on yet, the down alleys between the buildings and beyond both ends of the street, the clean green prairie rippled far away and quiet under the clear sky, but the town was troubled and noisy with rasping saws and pounding hammers and the thud of boxes and sharp crash of boards unloaded from wagons, and the men talked loudly. Timidly, Laura and Carrie waited to let Pa's wagon come up, and they led Mary along beside it until they all came to the corner where Pa's building was. The tall, false fronts loomed up, cutting off half the sky. Pa's building had a front door with a glass window on each side. The door opened onto one long room. Far at its other end was the back door, and near it, the side window. The floor was wide boards, and the walls were boards with daylight coming through knots and knotholes. That was all. "This place isn't very warm or tight, Carolyn," Pa said. "I haven't had time to put the siding on, nor to seal the inside. And there's no cornice under the eaves to cover that big crack. But we'll be warm enough now that spring has come, and I'll soon get the building finished." "You must build a stair so we can get to the loft," said Ma. "Now I shall just stretch the curtain across to make 2 rooms, so we'll have a place to sleep until you can put up the partition. Warm as this weather is, we don't need siding or a ceiling." Pa put Ellen and the horses in a small stable at the back of the lot. Then he set up the stove and stretched a rope for Ma's curtain. Ma hung sheets on it while Laura helped Pa set up the bedstead. Then Carrie helped her make the beds while Mary amused Grace and Ma got supper. The lamplight shone on the white curtain while they ate, but the end of the long room was shadowy, and the chilly air coming through all the cracks made the lamp flicker and the curtain move. There was too much empty space in that building, but all the time Laura felt the strangers were close outside. Lamplight shone out of the strangers' windows. Footsteps passed with a lantern, and voices were talking. She could not hear the words. Even when the night was still, she felt crowded by so many other people. She lay in bed with Mary in the dark and airy room, and stared at the vague white curtains and listened to the stillness and felt trapped in town. Sometimes in the night, she dreamed of wolves howling, but she was in bed and the howling was only the wind. She was cold. She was too cold to wake up. The covers seemed thin. She snuggled closer to Mary and buried her cold head under the thin covers. In her sleep, she was tight and shivering, till finally she grew cozy and warm. The next she knew, she heard Pa singing, "Oh, I'm as happy as a big sunflower that nods and bends in the breeze, and my heart is light as the wind that blows the leaves off from the trees." Laura opened one eye and peeked from under the covers. Snow felt softly on her face, a great lot of snow. "Ow," she said. "Lie still, Laura," said Pa. "All you girls lie still. I'll shovel you out in a minute, soon as I get this fire started and the snow off Ma." Laura heard the stove lid clatter. She heard the scratch of a match and the crackle of burning kindling. Kindling is very thin pieces of wood that make it easier to start the fire. She did not stir. The covers were heavy over her and she was warm as toast. Soon Pa came beside the curtain. "There's a good foot of snow on these beds," he said. "Oh my goodness, that's a lot. That's like as tall as my head. But I'll have it off you in 3 jerks of a lamb's tail. Lie still, girls." Laura and Mary lay perfectly still while Pa shoveled the snow off their covers, and the cold came through them. I'm going to show you what that looked like. How would you like to wake up like that? I think that would be crazy. They lay shivering and watching with his shovel. He took the snow off Carrie and Grace. Then he went to the stable to shovel out Ellen and the horses. "Get up, girls," Ma called. "Bring your clothes and dress by the fire." Laura jumped out of the warm bed and grabbed her clothes from the chair where she had laid them the night before. She shook the snow off them and ran barefoot over the snow scattered on the cold floor to the stove beyond the curtain. As she ran, she said, "Wait, Mary, I'll come back in a minute and shake the snow off your clothes." She shook out her petticoats and her dresses so quickly that the snow had no time to melt. Quickly, she shook her stockings and emptied the snow from her shoes and put them on. She hurried so fast that when she dressed, she was quite warm. Then she shook the snow from Mary's clothes and helped her quickly to the warmth that the oven gave out. Carrie came running with little squeals and jumps. "Oh, the snow burns my feet," she said, laughing through her teeth chattered from cold. It was so exciting to wake up in a snowdrift that she couldn't wait in bed until Laura could shake her clothes. Laura helped her button up. Then she put on their coats, and with the stove shovel and the broom, they scooped and swept back the snow into piles in the far corners of the long room. Snow lay in piles and drifts all along the street. Every lumber pile was a mountain of snow, and from the drifts, the bare timbers of unfinished buildings stuck up yellow and thin. The sun was up, and all the slopes of snow were rosy and the hollows were blue. Through every crack, the air came in as cold as ice. Ma warmed her shawl by the fire, wrapped it snugly around Grace, and brought her to Mary in the rocking chair pulled close to the oven. The hot stove made the air fairly warm all around them. Ma set the table almost against the stove, and the fire and the breakfast was ready when Pa came back. "This building is a pretty good sieve," Pa said. Snow blew through every crack and in under the eaves. Was a genuine blizzard while it lasted. To think we went through all winter without a blizzard, and now we get one in April, Ma marveled. Luckily, it struck in the night when folks were under cover, said Pa. If it had hit in the daytime, somebody would have been lost and frozen for sure. Nobody looks for a blizzard at this time of year. Well, the cold can't last long, Ma encouraged herself. April showers bring May flowers. What will an April blizzard bring? For one thing, a partition, said Pa. I'll have a partition up to keep the heat around this stove before I'm a day older. And he did. All day by the stove he sawed and hammered. Laura and Carrie helped hold the boards, and in Mary's lap, Grace played with the shavings. The new partition made a little room, with the stove and the table and the beds in it, and the windows looking out on the green prairie covered with snow. Then Pa brought in more snowy lumber and began sealing the walls. I'll stop some if the cracks go away, he said. All over the town there was sawing and hammering inside the other buildings. Ma said, I'm sorry for Mrs. Beersley keeping a hotel while it's being built over her head. That's what it takes to build up a country, said Pa. Building over your head and under your feet, but building. We'd never get anything fixed to suit us if we waited for things to suit us before it started. In a few days, the snow was gone and spring came back. The wind from the prairies brought a smell of damp ground and young grass. The sun rose earlier every day, and faintly all day the blue sky clanged with wild bird calls. High in the sky, Laura could see them flying, flock after flock, dark and small in the shimmering air. They did not gather thickly anymore on the Silver Lake. Only a few very tired flocks settled late after sunset in the sloughs and rose in the sky again before the sun rose. Wild birds did not like the town full of people, and neither did Laura. She thought, I'd rather be out on the prairie with the grass and the birds and Pa's fiddle. Yes, even the wolves. I would rather be anywhere than in this muddy, cluttered, noisy town, crowded with strange people. And she said, Pa, when are we going to move to the homestead? Soon as I sell this building, said Pa. More and more wagons came in every day. Teams and wagons pulled along the muddy streets past the windows. All day there was the noise of hammers and boots and voices. The shovel gangs were leveling the railroad grade. The teamsters were unloading ties and steel rails. In the evening, they were loudly drinking in the saloons. Carrie liked the town. She wanted to go out into it and see everything, and for hours she stood looking out of the windows. Sometimes Ma let her cross the street to visit two little girls that lived there, but oftener the little girls came to see her, for Ma did not like Carrie out of her sight. I declare, Laura, you're so restless, you give me the fidgets, Ma said one day. You're going to teach school, so why not begin now? Don't you think it would be nice if you taught Carrie and Louisie and Annie every day? It would keep Carrie at home and it would be good for you all. Laura did not think it would be nice. She did not want to do it at all. But she said obediently, yes, Ma. She thought she might as well try. So next morning when Louisie and Annie came to play with Carrie, Laura told them they were going to have school. She seated them all in a row and set a lesson to study in Ma's old primer. You study for 15 minutes, she told them. Then I'll hear you recite. They looked at her with wide eyes, but they did not say anything. They put their heads together and studied. while Laura sat in front of them. There never was such a long 15 minutes. At last Laura heard their spelling lesson, and then she set them a lesson in arithmetic. Whenever they fidgeted, she told them they must sit still, and she made them raise their hands for permission to speak. You all did very nicely, I'm sure. Ma smiled in approval when at last it was time to get dinner. You may come every morning and Laura will teach you. Tell your mother I shall step across the street this afternoon and tell her about the little school. Yes, ma'am, Lucy and Annie answered weakly. Goodbye, ma'am. With diligence and perseverance, Laura, I think you'll be a very good teacher, Ma praised Laura. And Laura answered, Thank you, Ma. I've got to be a good teacher, so I might as well try hard to be one. Every morning, little brown-haired Annie and red-haired Lucy came more reluctantly. Every day it was harder to teach them. They fidgeted, which means wiggled around, so that Laura despaired of ever making them sit still, and she could not make them study. One day they did not come. Perhaps they're too young to appreciate schooling. But I wonder at their mother, said Ma. Don't be discouraged, Laura, Mary said. Anyway, you taught the first school in DeSmet. I'm not discouraged, Laura said cheerfully. She was so glad to be free from teaching that she began to sing while she swept the floor. From the window, Carrie cried out, Look, Laura, something's happening. Maybe that's why they don't come in. In front of the hotel, a crowd was gathering. More and more men from all directions, and the sound of their voices was loud and excited. Laura remembered the payday crowd that had threatened Pa. In a minute, she saw Pa breaking through the crowd and coming home. He came in looking sober. What do you say to moving out to the claim right away, Carolyn? He asked. Today? Ma asked. Day after tomorrow, said Pa. It'll take me that long to put up a claim shanty. Sit down, Charles, and tell me what's wrong, Ma said quietly. Pa sat down. There's been a murder. Ma's eyes opened wide and she caught her breath. She said, Here? South of town, Pa got up. Claim jumper killed Hunter. He used to work on the grade. He drove out yesterday to his homestead, he and his father. When they drove up to his claim shanty, the man opened the door and looked out at them. Hunter asked him what he was doing there, and he shot Hunter dead. He tried to shoot the old man, but he whipped the team and got away. Neither one of them had a gun. The old man got to Mitchell and brought officers out this morning. They arrested that fellow. Arrested him, Pa said furiously. Hanging's too good for him. If we'd only known in time. Charles, Ma said. Well, said Pa, I think we'd better get onto our claim before somebody jumps it. So do I, Ma agreed. We'll move out as soon as you can put up any kind of shelter. Fix me up a snack to eat, and I'll start now, said Pa. I'll get a load of lumber and a man to help put up the shanty this afternoon. We'll move in tomorrow. Well, that was a surprising end. I bet Laura's glad they're going to be moving out. Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house and out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming.